is comedy, romance, drama and suspense. Co-starring with Norman Wisdom is Norman Wisdom as Giulio Napolitani, the fabulous Mayfair hairstylist.
You had ruined it. How dare you?
Wisdom as his suffragette mother.
We demand the sex equality.
Fighting for her sex, but nobody wants it. Get cracking for this one. What a couple of nuts. Wisdom brings the house down. And no wonder. Norman Wisdom is the little man who's always trying. Very, very trying.
Norman Wisdom is seen here receiving the British Comedy Award for a lifetime's achievement in the theatre. Wisdom was born in 1915 amongst the poverty of London's Paddington district. He rose from a deprived childhood to become the most glittering star of variety theatre. Norman was the only Englishman to top the bill regularly at the London Palladium, and he appeared for our gracious Queen at no fewer than 6 royal variety shows. The little comedian was a huge attraction in musicals too, such as Where's Charlie in the West End and Walking Happy over on New York's famous Broadway. Norman took his skills to the moving pictures, and at home his cabinets are full of awards, such as a British Academy Award and the Argentine Golden Flame as the most popular artist of all nations. This family appeal has meant the little fellow's antics are loved by millions throughout the world. One American reviewer summed it all up when he said, "Let's just be grateful for him."
Because I'm a fool. I know it's true, yes, I'm a fool.
Today, Norman Wisdom lives on the Isle of Man in a house called Ballalaf. Curiously, he takes no advantage of the island's tax haven status and insists on paying his tax in England. He says the island reminds him of England 20 or 30 years ago.
Sit down, will you, please? Now, Mr. Trask. Obviously, we've got a right one here. Have you ever been hypnotized?
No.
Now, I want you to concentrate on my eyes. Look at my eyes. Your eyelids are getting heavier.
Yeah, they are.
And heavier. You are in a hypnotic trance. Mr. Truscott, I want to take you back to your childhood, as far back as you can remember.
Number 91 Fernhead Road. That's where I used to live when I was a kid. It has very sad memories, but on the other hand, happy memories also. See, my parents split up when I was 9. And I lived here until I was 9 and a half, nearly 10, I suppose. And my mother had left home. So, with my dear brother, we used to go to school to St. Luke's, just up the road there.
My father used to be away with a chauffeur for sometimes months at a time. We didn't have anybody to look after us. No, we had no food, so I became quite expert, together with my brother, nicking food from the stalls, you see.
He used to drink a lot, no doubt about that. He used to drink a lot, and I don't know whether he was upset. Well, he must have been upset about the divorce as well, and maybe missed my mother, I don't know, but he used to be unkind. I mean, oh, well, I'll be truthful, boof like that. And I remember on one occasion he picked me up and threw me in this very house, threw me across the room, and I remember I hit the ceiling. It didn't hurt me. Maybe it did me the world of good. I learned how to fall. Oh, I suppose, you know, the childhood and what happened in those days created what later was called the Gump.
I'm having that job.
Who said so?
I did.
Particularly from a point of view of the pathos, sadness, the cheerful, and the characterization. So I'm very grateful, 91.
When he was 9, Norman and his brother were put in the care of a succession of guardians in Hertfordshire and Kent. He left school at 14 for various delivery and pageboy jobs. Then he and a friend decided to walk to Wales to find work. 12 days and nearly 200 miles later, the friend deserted him in Cardiff. So, homeless and jobless, Norman decided to try his luck in Cardiff docks.
And as I walked in, a fellow from a hut just on the left I heard shouted, "Oi! Oi!" So I turned around and he said, what do you want? And so I just said, I'm looking for a job. And he said, "No, where are you from?" I said, "London." He said, "Well, how did you get here?" I said, "I walked." He said, "Don't be silly." He said, "Show me the bottom of your shoes." So I did, and there was holes. Holes in the bottom of my shoes, really. And he went aboard this ship that was there, came back about 20 minutes later, and he said, "I've got you a job then, a cabin boy." And 2 days later, I was off on my way to the Argentine, having the time of my life. And they taught me how to box, which I found very interesting, and they didn't hurt me. And I knew why they taught me, because when we got to Buenos Aires, they took me to a boxing booth. You know, that's illegal these days. But they took me to the boxing booth where you take on, well, professional fighters take on all comers, and they fixed me up, and I had to get in the ring with a bloke who was about, well, stone and a half at least more than me, although he was a flyweight. And after, sort of, if you're standing up after one round, you get about £1, you know, in the Argentinian money, anyway. And or if you're standing up for 2 rounds, equivalent to £2. But 3 rounds was the whole lot. After 3 rounds, you get £5 if you're still standing up then. And I'd been knocked down many times. I was smothered with blood. But at the end of the 3rd round, I was still on my feet. And then I went to collect the money, but the crew had collected the money before me and shoved off. and I wasn't worried, because I felt I'd become a man somehow. And I remember the following morning, you know, the crew, they were ruffling my hair and saying, "Well done." And I felt sort of, oh. So we got back to Barry, a bit unlucky again, because I went to the juvenile welfare just about 2 days before Christmas. And there was about 14 or 15 boys in this juvenile welfare. And they'd all been invited out by various people, you know, who were being kind and for Christmas. And I was the only one left by myself on Christmas Day. You have to excuse me, I'm a bit of a Burke. But I was the only one left, and I was having sausages and mash. And it was the only time I cried. I'm not really crying. The only cry I did, though, I cried on that day. And, but, you know, that's the way it was. Sad, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
I didn't know any better. Didn't know what I was missing. I do now. That's why I got this place. But I was sleeping in doorways and behind the Marshall Fox statue.
Victoria.
In Victoria, that's right, yeah.
There's a kip round the back here. When I say kip, I mean sleep, because first night was there, on the concrete. But that was too hard. So, second night, I went in there, on the grass, on the bench. Different in those days, of course. It was summer, trees were all out, it was warmer, used to be a coffee stall over there, and about 2:30 in the morning I used to get up off the bench and go over there and say, well, just look over the shelf very sadly at him, like that. And he was sorry for me. He used to push me a hot pie and a cup of bovril. And then after about 6 or 7 nights and went on for, and he talked to me, and he knew I was 14 and out of work, and he said to me, well, why don't you join the army? I said, I can't get in the army at my age, 14. He said, of course you can. He said, you can get into the band when you're 14. I said, well, I didn't know. I said, but I don't know anything about music. He said, well, bullshit them.
And the following morning I had an interview with the bandmaster, who said to me, you know all about music, do you? I said, oh, yes, sir, yes, sir. He said, well, what's a flat? I said, well, I don't know that one, sir. Oh, he said, well, what's a sharp? And I said, well, I don't know that one either, sir. Like we were playing riddles, you see, and he said, well, you don't know much about music at all, do you? I said, no, sir, but I'd like a chance to learn. And he must have been sorry for me, because he said, well, why didn't you say so in the first place? All right, I'll take you. And you know, a couple of weeks after that, I was on my way to India, going to the 10th Royal Hussars, having the time of my life. I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed myself so far. It didn't seem sad to me in any way. But having the time of my life, football, cricket, swimming, wonderful weather, my own bed, wonderful food, and fantastic mates. Oh, heaven.
You know, it turns out you're only 14 after all that. You're only 4 foot 10 and a half and 5 stone 9 pounds. It's as if you've been through several lifetimes. Now, why do you want to, if I might ask, why do you want to cut out all the bits that must at the time have hurt you quite a lot?
The other blokes around Paddington at that time, their father used to wallop them as well. It was expected. But, you know...
But there was a vindictiveness too. Your mother, I think it was your mother, turned up with a present.
A fairy cycle.
That's right. And then what did your father do when he saw you on the bicycle?
Yeah. Well, I realised he was a jealous man, and I don't know. Yeah, of course.
So you don't even want to talk about it. It's interesting.
Well, some things you forget, but I remember distinctly that my mother didn't let me at school, and just before Christmas, yeah, and gave me a fairy cycle, and I took it home, little fairy cycle, and I was proud of it. And my father said, "Where'd you get that?" And I said, "Mum gave it to me," and he just picked it up and stamped on it. And of course, I thought, well, I suppose I'm not allowed to have bicycles, so I accept it.
But you seem to have drawn only good things from it and only strengths from it, and that's what you're determined to do, isn't it?
Well, I was very, very lucky, because getting into the army, I owe everything, absolutely 100% to the army, because I enjoyed myself in the army. Then I was put onto clarinet and learned to play clarinet and was taught music. And of course it takes, you know, a year or maybe 18 months before you play in clarinet in, you know, any way where you could be in the band, actually be in the band. But I was on trumpet as well. I was a trumpeter belonging Cookhouse, last post and all that. Although that was fun in a way, I still wanted to be, I would want to be out playing with the band on engagements. And so I found, I wanted to find something that nobody else in the band played. So then the band used to also sing sea shanties. Hey, hey, jiggy, jiggy, in a jaunting car, my lies are you'll marry me, oh, and I went to the bandmaster one day and I said, "Excuse me, sir." He said, "Yes, Wisdom." I said, "Why is it that nobody sings the solos while you're doing the sea shanties. He said, well, we haven't got anybody who can sing the solos Wisdom. And I said, yes, sir. Oh, he said, really? Well, I said, yes, sir. He said, well, let me hear you.
Give me the girl I love, the stars up above, and I won't have to tell her what I'm thinking of. So give me a night in June, give me a silvery moon, and she'll be mine, all mine, and she'll be mine, all mine.
And I'm really beginning to get the so I went then into the wash house for 2 or 3 months, and I started with my feet. And yes, and about 2 months later I went back to the bandmaster. I said, excuse me. So he said, yes, Wisdom. I said, what would it be like, see, so if at the troop concert somebody did a tap dance? And he said, Wisdom, don't tell me. One evening we went and did a concert in the officers' mess, and they started to laugh. So I thought, all right then. So I tripped and fell over, and they screamed with laughter. And as I sat on the floor, I suddenly thought to myself, oh, what's it? Comedy. Oh.
As well as developing his skills as a musician and comedian, Wisdom became the flyweight boxing champion of the British Army in India. The war found him in the Royal Corps of Signals, where he became a popular feature of concert parties as Dizzy Wizzy. On demobilisation, he went for an audition at Collins Music Hall, but was initially turned down by the manager, Lou Lake.
And I became that man's shadow. I really was his shadow. If he was in the bar and he lifted a pint of beer to his mouth, my head was under his arm. Until eventually he said to me, look, if I let you go on First House Monday, because it was twice nightly then every night, he said, if I let you go on First House Monday and you're no good, would you promise to go away and leave me alone? And I said, yes, I agree on that. He said, all right, and I went on First House Monday.
Wisdom was fortunate in finding work at the end of the variety circuit era, when nightly performances could hone an act to perfection. This unique footage of him shadowboxing is the only film record of his act at that time.
The character that was associated with you for many years was the Gump. Where did that character come together, really, and how did it really come together?
I was sharing a dressing room with a conjurer. He was having difficulty finding the material for his last show. So he said, hey, I'll tell you what, I've got an idea. I said, what's this? He said, well, if when I invite someone up from the audience to help me do a few tricks, if it's you come up from the audience and help me. He said, that'll settle my act. I said, yeah, fine, good idea.
Now then, do you know what I'm going to do with your watch? No, sir. I'm going to place it on the table, so. And I'm going to break it up into lots and lots of little pieces.
So I went into town, I bought a suit for 30 shillings and a cap for 1 shilling. And it was so successful that we were booked at the London Casino.
No, get out of it. Go on, get out of it. You know very well it's all smashed up and broken. I saw you and everybody saw you. Put it on the table and you hit it as hard as you could. Well, that's just where you're wrong.
Neither of us wanted to be a double act. And he went his way and I went mine. We remained very dear friends for the rest of his life.
Now then, whose watch is this, eh? Whose is it?
Norman's, yes.
And it was dear David Nixon. Cool. That is the original hat. The first one I bought, you know, for a shilling, I told you about it at Scarborough. This is the, oh, that's the suit. It's not the first time it's fallen over, don't worry. And, look, I've taken the coat hanger off, or the trousers hanger. Look, that's the original. Oh, cool. Look at that, look. I wore that for years. That's the one I bought for 30 shillings. And I'm very proud and I look after it and keep it. And I've had 34 of these suits made since 1948. 34. Well, the clothes go with the character. He's a Burke, isn't he? who's kindly, likes people, is frightened, makes mistakes, can sometimes be successful, but rarely all the way. And that's how the character was. The Gump, which is an old-fashioned word for lunatic. Burke, if you like. I used to go to the theatre where I was working at 9 o'clock in the morning and just rehearse for all day nearly, sometimes certainly no less than 4 or 5 hours. People used to think I was potty, but probably right anyway, but I was learning the job that way.
Using his tremendous athleticism, Wisdom developed an unequalled mastery of stage skills such as the falls and walks, which were an essential part of variety theatre.
When a fruit of barrows, I am very, very blunt.
Got a bit of a limp, haven't you?
There's one thing that I have kept almost secret, but I'll tell you that normally, comedians in particular, you come on stage to entertain an audience, don't you? And as my work started to improve, and then I felt that the audience were applauding and they were laughing happily, I used to feel they're not an audience, they're my friends. And then I decided that I was coming on stage to have fun with a crowd of my chums. And that's what I did. And it works, it really does. Because I come on stage and just so you get the idea, just to, well, I won't be a minute, I'll be off and then back before you know what's happened. See, they applaud, and you look as if you're frightened. You didn't expect that. Didn't expect applause like that, but they're lovely. And you say hello. You point. What I do, point to the people. I like you, you're saying. And you know they like you. And you love them. And maybe they love you too. It's exciting. You tell them that you love them, you love them, you love them. And then you got them. Then you start to work.
During the 7 years after the war, Wisdom rose to become the biggest name on the variety circuit, topping the bill at the London Casino and breaking all records at the Palladium. In 1952, when he was already 38, he starred in his first film, and from then on, he continued his stage and screen careers in parallel.
Now, as well as attending this premiere, you've got to give a performance in Where's Charlie tonight. How are you going to fit all this in?
I rush from the foyer out into the street and start running, and as I leave the foyer, somebody will phone to the Palace Theatre and the overture will start to play, and I just hope and pray that as I run, everything will be all right and I can be there in time to make my entrance.
Although there's little filmed record of Wisdom's stage act during his early career, a good idea of it can be gained from his double act with Bruce Forsyth in the 1961 London Palladium.
Oh, nothing.
Darling, come and sit down. It won't do you any harm to take a few minutes off. Look, it's Norman Wisdom. You know how he makes you laugh.
I defy anyone to make me laugh.
Despite Norman Wisdom's success on stage, the producers of his first film, Trouble in Store, were unsure of his abilities on screen. They arranged a sneak preview at this cinema, which was then the Gaumont, Camden Town.
I stood here like this, and as the big noises came in, you know, the executives, you know, Earl St. John and John Davis and all coming in, and like this, you see, they came in. Good evening, Mr. Wisdom, evening. And hey, when the film was finished, a different story. When look. Oh, Norman, oh, you're so brilliant. What a wonderful film. And it's called The Bullshit of Showbiz.
The preview audience proved a reliable guide. Trouble in Store was an immediate success, playing in 67 London cinemas and smashing the box office records in 51 of them.
Well, I didn't realise it was going to be so good. But, you know, I got the British Film Academy Award for that. Yeah, Trouble in Store. Fancy getting the British Film Academy Award for your first film ever.
Many musical artists at the time failed to transfer successfully to film. One of the reasons for Wisdom's success was that over the years, Norman had concentrated on producing a very strong comic personality, which he called the Gump. And it was consistent and strong enough for screenwriters to give him 90-minute feature-length adventures for which this character could sustain.
Good morning.
Morning. Where is he?
Haven't I met you before?
Oh, it's possible. I'm all over the place. Hey, they're the governors. Well, if you're going to have one, I might as well have one too.
One characteristic routine of the Gump would be that he fails to recognise class authority when it's staring him in the face. A great moment in Trouble in Store is when he is called up to the office of the new boss. There's the lowest member of the staff. And there's Jerry Desmond sitting behind the desk, oozing class authority. And Norman just doesn't recognise any of these subtle indications.
Do you know who I am?
Huh?
I am Augustus Freeman.
Oh, I'm Norman. Stop them. I'm going to get promoted. Going to be a window dresser. Chief sent for me.
I am the new chief.
Oh, you get your promotion quicker than I do, don't you?
When you're in Jerry Desmond's office offering him cigars, that becomes a routine. How do you work out where the laughs are?
Well, you do it rehearsal first, and, you know, all the crew and everybody are there, and they're laughing in the same way, see? So you know, and when Paddy Carr says, or the director says action, there's no laughter, but you know that that's correct. You work it out. And
so you're actually, seriously, the crew's your audience. You peg it out according to their laughter.
Oh, yeah, and then the director says, that's funny, that's very good, fine, we like that, and you work it out for yourself as well. You have to have confidence in your own inventions and what you're doing, and you have to enjoy yourself as well, because if you're enjoying yourself, you're messing about and it's amusing.
It's that little fellow again.
Yes, happy indeed at his work.
In the early 50s, the Rank organisation was trying to recover from near insolvency. Norman Wisdom's success helped to solve their problems. Over the next 12 years, he made a film a year for Rank, most of them big box office successes. Internationally, too, they proved popular, especially in Eastern and Western Europe, Hong Kong and Iran. Company policy was not to release profit figures, but 30 years on, Wisdom's producer, Hugh Stewart, was prepared to be a little more candid.
The Rank organisation reckoned to get most of the money back on the budget of a film within 2 or 3 weeks of it being shown. And this is quite exceptional. There was a strange figure called the distributor's gross. I never quite knew how it was done, but this was the talisman figure that we had to work to. And if a distributor's gross of £85,000 in those days was considered good, 90, 95, 100, very good, 125, very good indeed, excellent. we very often got 125.30, and with stitching time we got 162. I mean, it was a phenomenal success, and Norman was enormously important to Rank and British Films financially.
This is the way to Pinewood Studios, just here on the left. Here we are, going in there, the entrance. You have to get permission here to go in, if I remember rightly. It's probably the same, I don't know.
Hello, Mr. Wisdom.
Hello.
How are you?
Thank you. Fine, thank you. God, this brings back memories too. Oh dear. Oh, this is a smashing place. Really nice. Hey, Hugh, there's some happy memories,
I've
eh?
been here a few
In front
times.
of this. Do you remember
What was the first time we used it?
Well, the Stitching Time.
Stitching
I was in
the exterior of the hospital.
Hey, take it easy. What are you doing?
But also when he got through the back of it from the other side of the rolls and came through the door and fell over the bicycle that I'd put up against the post there.
Excuse me, do please. A lady,
Let's take us home, see if we can find somewhere else. Come on, mate.
Nice though, isn't it, eh? Cool.
That building was our set.
Yes.
And this is Consolidated Dairies.
That's right, and it was all done with, you know, wonderful drawing on the screen. You know, I
That's
don't know
right.
the technicalities of it,
Yeah.
but you do. But,
Yes.
but it was absolutely wonderful.
And then that corner over there is where we did the car washing sequence and On the Beat.
With Raymond Huntley.
Commissioner of Scotland Yard.
Yeah, that's
who
right.
thought you were having a joke with him.
No, don't start laughing about.
And I thought that they were joking all the time, see?
That's right.
Oh, it was a smashing scene to do. It was
tremendous
really
sequence.
fun.
You gonna give in? You'll get yourself soaked. Now you get soaking wet.
This is the room, well, you know, as you well remember, where up in the world, I came to the wrong part. There was a party going on here with all the big wigs, and I thought it was a staff party, and I came to the wrong party. So I was serving everybody with
Chatting everybody
food,
up.
saying, "Here, I'll get this down you," and all that. And I remember there's a big tea urn, and I said, "Hi, urn," like that, and everybody laughed.
Yeah, but you had better gags than that as well. Yes.
Good old Ern. Ern. You'll get used to me.
Oh, and of course, and I played the drums because what was his name?
Michael Ward.
Mike
At
Ward.
the piano.
He was playing the piano.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and I congratulated him and said that was smashing, and I went and played the drums. And you know, that's the only time I played an instrument in any of the films I did. On occasions you say, well, people only think that you're being dubbed. No, drums are visual. It's obviously me.
Mammy!
The Gump is a traditional kind of figure, a little man against the world, and one of the things about him is that he's very naive. And this leads to another recurring comic strategy of Norman's, which is to misunderstand a series of commands.
Is there anything of value on the island?
Milk? No, no milk. Maybe a little oil.
Oh. Marvelous. I'm not quite clear about this uninhabited island's position in relation to the mainland.
Well, it's all quite clear on the map here. Let me show you. Now, let me see.
Where do you want it, sir?
Just there. Take that away.
But you said...
Take it away.
Am I right in saying just there?
No, not there. There. Will you take that away?
Oh, have a cake. Are there any rocks? There's only one. Who's going to have it?
Another characteristic of the Gump is the need to be loved. This usually manifests itself. You put the Gump in with a group of people or with an individual, he'll try to entertain them. And the laughs often come because he'll do this in a completely inappropriate situation.
His struggle he had in his life made him a tough person to convince. But once he was convinced, then he was right in behind it, and he'd come up with wonderful ideas about how scenes could be developed. He'd come up with new angles on what one could do. And he was an enormous influence on the writing, more and more so as it went along.
When Jack Davis started to do the scripts, we were chatting together, and he suggested, and he was writing it out, and he said, hey, well, look, and so he used to do the scripts and then leave it to myself to put my 2 pence in, and then...
But what was your 2 pence?
So we worked together, eh?
What was your 2 pence?
What was my 2 pence? Well, he did the storyline, for instance, the square peg. He did the storyline and allowed me to put in the amusing parts like the marching. That was my idea of shouting from the ditch, you know, to the troops who were doing the marching. Halt! About! Turn! When I told him that, he loved it.
Slow! March! Quick! March! Slow! Slow! Quick! Quick! Slow! 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 Quick! Quick! Slow! 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 Quick! Quick! Slow! This space for tea!
And then I said to Jack Davis, we must find an extra dimension because we can't go on doing the same things. Norman himself wants to do something new. Let us find something. And as a result of our talk, Jack came up with this idea of him playing an Erich von Stroheim German general.
The German general was the first of a series of attempts to break away from the Gump or Norman Pitkin type of character.
We'll have those 2 seats over there. Come along, Tatters.
That is the high table, sir.
Then you must get a high chair.
The physical skills he'd developed for his variety work made Wisdom the most successful clown in British cinema.
Oh! You always like to do your own stunt work.
It was fun. I really thoroughly enjoyed it.
And I used to get worried because I thought, well, if he kills himself, what am I going to do?
I know. Well, I was worried about
Bad
you.
for the
I
picture,
thought, I kept thinking to myself, if I kill myself, what's he going to do? What a shame, poor old Hugh. You know?
Yes.
Oh.
Because that was a really elaborate sequence.
Yeah.
I remember when I first met you, working with Norman was going to be like having a love affair with a pile driver. And I knew it was something going to be very big.
This is where we did that scene, all through the green.
Jerry with the lawn.
Jerry Desmond, yeah. Yeah.
And you were complaining about the smashed milk bottles. And the end of it, you wrecked his entire garden.
Well, he was doing the lawnmower, and I caught hold of the lawnmower and accidentally started it off and then hung on to it as it went through. Through the greenhouses.
and then at the end of it, go out, hit a tree.
The big Bentley was sitting there, and the tree went smashing right on top of it. Yeah. This is it, Pinewood Pond. You know, that bench was exactly the same position as it was when I sang "Don't Laugh at Me" to Lana Morris. I'll never forget.
Want some?
Thank you.
Oh, I meant for the ducks. Oh, I wish they wouldn't go away. That little one there hasn't had anything. I wish he'd come in.
Paddy Carstairs, the director, you know, he kept on, I noticed, he kept on saying, cut, action, cut, action. We'd done the scene about 15 times, and I saw the crew, you know, all beginning to go laughing, and I caught on to it that Paddy was getting me at it. So I picked him up. He was about my size, so it was all right. I picked him up, and I carried him right into the pond, dumped him there, and I dumped myself as well. And everybody laughed. It was marvellous. And from then on, we became really close friends.
And so we never did it again. At the heart of comedy, very often, there is sadness or tragedy or something which really makes it work. When people say it's only a comedy, it's just so they don't know the business, because comedy is a very difficult thing to do.
Peggy, sorry I'm late, love.
That's all right, Bob. I've only been here a couple of minutes.
Well, shall we go?
Yes.
Well, I think laughter and tears are equally as important, almost. A bit more laughs, yes.
And do you find it easy to sort of reach that in yourself and in other people?
Yes. Want a tear now? Want a tear? It's easy. I just think of things that happened to me in the past. How's that? Now let me wipe.
What sort of things do you think that happened to you in the past? What were you thinking about then?
Oh, no, don't tease me. What? Being starving hungry and having a kip by the Marshall Fox statue.
You always go back to that, do you?
And being left on my own when I was a kid. Don't start, they'll be real. Well, yeah, you can't help thinking about those things. It's part of life, isn't it? And I was very lucky, because I thoroughly enjoyed it, despite that.
In the early 1960s, Wisdom broke away from Rank to make There Was a Crooked Man. This film and Girl on a Boat allowed him to use acting abilities outside the little clown character. Despite good reviews, they failed to find large audiences. But his 1968 American film, The Night They Raided Minsky's, was both a critical and a commercial success. In 1966, Wisdom had gone to New York to star in the musical Walking Happy. It was a huge success. Wisdom was nominated for a Tony Award, and his career took off spectacularly at a time when it wasn't easy for British comedy to achieve success in America. He made frequent appearances on American chat shows and starred on American television with Noel Coward in Richard Rodgers' musical adaptation of Shaw's Androcles and the Lion.
You see, Androcles, how magnanimous we Romans are. We suffer you to go, in peace and with our blessings.
I thank your worship, and I thank the ladies and gentlemen. Come on, Pussy. Time to go. And remember, As long as we stand together, no cages for you, no chains for me.
Now, I know that no one, certainly in England, would cast me in Andrew Cleese and the Lion, because that's a good acting part.
Do you regret that you didn't decide to stay in the States and build on this success and spread and, in a sense, new reach that you had over there? Do you ever look back and think, wish I'd stayed there for a few more years?
Yes, I do. Oh, yes, I do. But unfortunately, there was something personal came into that, you know. Well, my wife had found somebody tall and good-looking while I was away, see. I mean, she was happy, so. And, but I had to come back to look after my kids, my son and daughter, which I did, and I'm glad I did.
And that was the end of the States in that sense?
Yes, it was, really.
And as far as I can judge from what I've read and seen, a definite change in your career and how it was perceived. Instead of doing that, you came back and looked after your children. That's the top and bottom of it, isn't it?
Yes, yes. And then did summer seasons at Blackpool and pantomime at the Palladium and pantomime and things of that nature. And then, as the children left school, I then toured the world.
Through the 70s, Norman starred in a series of TV shows, and in 1981 received considerable acclaim for a straight acting role in the TV play Going Gently, about cancer patients.
Jesus, I'm scared.
What is it, Flood?
I don't ever want to go through that again.
You're not making sense.
This morning, between 5 and 7, I don't ever want to be as lonely as that again.
Stephen Frears said to me, you know, Norman, I appreciate that you would like to do this, but I do not want any comedy, you know that. There's nothing funny about this. This is about a cancer patient dying in hospital. And I said, oh, yes, I know. I said, but, and I couldn't help saying, I said, but if something like, for instance, since I'm in the nightshirt and I get out of bed, and if the edge of my nightshirt catches on the spring, on the underneath of the bed, as I walk away, the spring becomes taut to the extent where it would pull me back. And then if I accidentally put my foot in the chamber pot underneath the bed, I said, there must be a sort of a giggle there, and he'd gone sort of pale. And he says, Norman, I do not want any comedy. Now, that is absolute. And I said, well, who the bloody hell do you think you're talking to? I've just about had enough of this. I said, you send for me, you want me to do a straight part, and you start talking about comedy. You keep on giving me a coating, and I'm not going to put up with this. I don't have to do this. I can do work and other things all over the place. I can do cabaret theatres, musicals. I can do anything I want. So you don't have to give me. And he said, Norman, calm down, please, calm down. And I said, well, how's that for acting? 1978, I was asked if I would go to the Isle of Man and do a summer season at the Gaiety Theatre, and I just fell in love with the place. It's such a beautiful island.
I love that tune.
Yes, it is nice, isn't it? Catchy.
What is it, Norman?
I don't know. Well, I know it. It goes... That's it. You must remember this. You've heard it before.
You know what this reminds me of, don't you?
What? Oh, yes. Ruining the music, this is. You'll go all bang in a minute.
Don't laugh.
I can't help it.
Oh, no.